I think it's also important to do and try new things. Even if it doesn't make money, really be active, not sit and wait. Be active and try new processes or a new service or whatever, or doing things online or virtual presentations like we're doing today, no? So it's hard to change habits, especially because those habits have made you successful to date. So now the game has changed, the rules have changed. So you need to experiment and accept that maybe you'll fail at new things, but try new things.
Welcome to another episode of the peopleHum interview series. I'm your host Zia, and let's begin with a quick introduction of peopleHum. peopleHum is an end-to-end, one-view, integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award for HCM that is specifically built for crafted employee experience and the future of work. We run the peopleHum blog and video channel, which receives upwards of 200,000 visitors a year, and publish around 2 interviews with well-known names globally every month. And for now, our guest, Dr. Katrina Burrus, is the founder and CEO at Excellent Executive Coaching and the lead coach for MKB Excellent Coaching. She has worked for 20 years as an executive coach with companies in Europe, US, Asia, and the Middle East, and has traveled around the world as a keynote speaker. Katrina is a consultant, author of 3 books, keynote speaker, and TV and podcast host. Welcome, Katrina. We're thrilled to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
So, for the first question I had for you, Katrina, was, you've had quite an exciting journey so far. Can you tell us your story about how you came to be the founder and CEO at Excellent Executive Coaching?
Well, I started by living in Spain. I grew up in Switzerland, and then I went to Spain, and then I went to the US. And so after the US, after doing my MBA, which was global studies, I went back to Switzerland because I have 2 passports and started in the finance field. So I did that for 5 years. And then I realized that my passion wasn't finance, although I had prospects to working in a bank, but it wasn't where my heart was. So I left. I had 2 children, and I left. I did some humanitarian work, but I said that's not enough. I did my PhD in human and organizational development, and then I decided, what am I going to do now? Because I had a house to pay for. I was having a very good income, working for the bank, prospects. But I had a loan from the bank, so I was a bit in the golden cage. But finally, I decided to leave because all of a sudden I really didn't feel that passion. And when I found there was coaching school, I decided that's it. But from the banking world, you evaluate companies if they're a good investment or not. And the price over earnings, that's called PE, is also determined by good leadership. And so I thought, well, that was a passion of mine. So I went to the University of Geneva and listened to big conferences of very prominent leaders. And one leader, which was the future CEO of Nestle, and then became the board director, and then recently he left Nestle to retire. Well, I went to listen to him, and I said, so he's talking with these things, and I looked at the audience and how they reacted, and then I saw, this was wonderful what he did, but here he could do better. And I don't know what happened to me, but I sent him a letter, and I said, look, you did a wonderful job. And in fact, you could do a little bit better here because that wasn't as credible as the rest of your speech. And I sent it to him. I don't know what happened because I left the bank and just followed my intuition. Well, he sent me a thank you letter, nothing more. But what life had for me, I go to a party and I see him there with a slew of people around him that are practically breathing his oxygen. And I said, I'm not a groupie. I don't want the corporate life where you have to do politics. It's not what's something. So I didn't approach him. But it was a dinner party, it was a buffet where you go and pick your food and you bring it back to the table. And I was with a group of girlfriends. But a girlfriend goes back to the table and brings more food. And who do I see this handsome gentleman sit down? And it was the future CEO of Nestle. And he tells me, oh, I didn't have time to do this. So really was such a small event and this and that. And I said, but you know what? I can help you. I don't know what stung me because I'm not that outgoing. I said, I really thought I could help him. I said, if you look at this different ways people analyze, analyze information. If you take all those different ways of analyzing information and you put it in your speech, you know what? Those people will feel like you're talking to them in their language. And he said, okay, I'll meet you at such and such a place at such and such a time. And so I said, okay. But then the day comes and I said, oh my God, what am I going to say? Trembling. And so I go there and he's with the press. So I wait 30 minutes and then wait 40 minutes. And then finally he comes and I said, oh, what am I going to tell him? What am I going to tell him now? The fear of being with such an important person. And I don't know what I said, but I said, I'll never be nervous again. Never. I don't want to be nervous when I'm talking with the king or queen of any language, any country. So I said, I'm going to do coaching. I'm going to learn the art of questioning, the art Socratic questioning. And I went back to school. I had a PhD. I had already a master's degree, but I went back and I said, I'll be formed to the art of questioning, really. And so that's what started my career. And of course, he said, okay, for my speech to the top 200 people, here it is, give me feedback. Because I said I could help. So basically that's how it started. And he gave me a chance and the confidence to go from banking. Of course, I had an MBA, but still it was banking, to giving him feedback on how to present and how not to present, but how to be more impactful when you give a speech. So that's how I started the career. It was luck. It was having the guts in a way to say, okay, I really think I can help you here, and express it, but also deliver. That is, also do what's necessary to be a good professional. So that's how it started. And then from there, I started my own company and I started to have clients and multinationals.
Wow, I think that was quite an amazing way where, the way that, you led into your career path and into, following your passion and your gut and where it led you. It really goes to show, how important it is for us to, follow our intuition. And it's amazing how your experiences kind of shaped you and pushed you into doing something you really wanted to do, which is, help people and, coach people. So that was really nice to know. So, I'd love to know, as an executive coach, how do you think leaders can maximize their executive coaching return on investment?
Well, that's a very good question. And I have a 7-step process for different things. I'm known for 2 things: is how to transform a brilliant jerk, that is someone that's very bright, very good expert, but interpersonally blind, how to transform them to be inspiring, And that's a 7-step process. And the other thing that I've really worked on and researched is how, 40% of leaders fail after 18 months in a new position or with a new assignment. So how to really make them succeed in that transition. But I'll say in the two situation, it's really being very clear with what are the goals of the coaching, what's the expectation of the boss, how are they going to analyze the change, what are they looking for, really helping the boss as well as your coachee to understand how they communicate with each other, to facilitate the communication between the two. That's one of the process. And basically with executives, I look at the company, I call that emerge, to see what is the company trying to promote? How do they reward people? How do they promote people? How do they fire people? So somebody is cognizant of the environment in which they are. I'll give you an example. When I work with brilliant jerks, if what's rewarded is tough leaders that are promoted for getting results at all costs, the means justify the ends, then even if you work in an individual level with somebody and you put them back in that environment, let's say you help them be emotionally cognizant, better communicators, having more empathy, but you put them back in that environment, it's like taking a recovering alcoholic back into the bar with his drinking buddies. So you look at the environment. And then you go to the next step, which is educate, which is self-awareness. You develop self-awareness, how they think, what their values are, what triggers them to be angry or not. There's a whole series. How I helped Peter Brabeck, the prior CEO and board member of Nestle, was really how does he process information? What is his style of communication? And usually people go and communicate in their style, but there's other styles, so they have to adapt and help them adapt to that. So how to better understand others and how they think and what they value and what they fear is the next step, which is empathize. How do you develop empathy? And that's, I call that boss awareness. So there's first you look at the organization, second you work to educate, which is self-awareness. And Daniel Goleman says that you cannot have social awareness if you don't have self-awareness. And then you look at boss awareness. Why a boss? Because a boss has a direct influence on your career. So usually they're motivated, these brilliant jerks, as I call them affectionately. Usually they're motivated to know their boss. So I help them really understand them. But just because they understand their boss, that doesn't mean that they can have leadership agility. What is leadership agility? It's to be able to see who they have in front of them and adapt accordingly and in what context. So now they understand their boss better. They know what he needs, how he should communicate, how he should support, what the boss fears. But then we need to go to team, empowering the team. How can they be more impactful with the team? I'll give you an example. One of my clients called George had a lot of high achievers work for him. But in the beginning of the year, he would do a strategy plan trying to make them collaborate. But at the end of the year, they were so individualistic that nothing was done. So it's looking at what is he doing that these people are not collaborating? What does he need to know or she needs to know to make them more productive in a team environment? So, so that's empowering the team. It's team awareness. Now that they know team awareness, they still don't know stakeholder awareness. So expand so they can control more of themselves, manage themselves. They understand better their boss to have a better communication. Then they have team awareness, is how to adapt to the team to bring a team together. And then we go to the next is stakeholder awareness, which I called expanding your helicopter view. And it's really having a better analysis of who you have in front of you and in what context, and to have the best strategic behavior to get the outcome you want while building people, not destroying them on the way. So that's a team awareness. But now, hey, they have self-awareness, boss awareness, stakeholder awareness, team awareness. But that doesn't mean they can change, because I've worked for many companies where they get a 360-degree feedback, which is feedback from their boss, feedback from their peers, and feedback from the direct reports. And it says that he doesn't get along or she doesn't get along with her teams. They're toxic, but they don't change. So the next step is really going into how do they change their behavior. It's executive behavior. So execute a plan of change. With this awareness, they practice new behaviors to be more productive and more understanding of the situation to get better results. Excuse me. So once that's done, it's so they've invested so much in them. It's okay. How do you transform now with all that information from a brilliant jerk to an inspiring leader? What's an inspiring leader? It's someone that they love to go to work. It's someone that they will give the extra hours. It's someone that feels that they can succeed and that they can really make a difference, that they like their work beyond status, and they really engage into their workplace. It also, inspiring is also how do you deal with the press, with the radio, these different situations. So that's a process that I have to really help leaders be more effective. And there's not much you can do without self-awareness as the first step.
Wow, those were some amazing aspects that you touched upon, and you really, went over different areas. And that's, I think it's a very holistic approach with, different parts that you take into account. So I'm sure you're working, with people who are from different cultures and different places. So that kind of leads me towards my next question that I had, which is, you have had a pan-global experience in coaching. Do you find yourself altering your coaching style according to cultural changes, or do you follow one common main style of coaching?
Well, the process remains the same, but there has to be an adaptation to the culture. So what might be abrasive in the Swiss culture, which is consensus-based, where you don't criticize somebody in public, will be different the way you do it in Russia, which they're much more confrontational, much more direct. So yes, you do need to adapt. What is perceived as abrasive, that is misbehavior in a sense, is different in different cultures. And to understand that is very important. And also with a team that is very, very from multiple different cultures, it's important to be spend more time in understanding the different perspectives, because it's a richness to have team members from multiple different cultures, because they'll have multiple different perspectives, but the misunderstanding between people can be higher. So you need to have more time to process that.
Certainly. I mean, yeah, I think it's becoming more and more, the world is becoming more global. So it's more important to kind of, account for different cultures. And that's an important aspect to kind of take into account. So, given the current situation and circumstances, I'd love to know, what advice do you have for leaders and owners of businesses which are particularly affected by the pandemic's economic effects?
So I think interpersonal relationship is even more important today, to have the skill to engage, to collaborate, to have people federated towards a common objective is even more important today because a lot of it is virtual. So the less contact, the less direct contact can give more misunderstandings. So things needs to be discussed more, but take more time to understand. And the other thing is people in, that are taken out of the work environment where they're stimulated with colleagues to work together, to talk together, and you're in a very specific environment, which is work related, work related office, is very different than working at home when your children can't go to school, when you might not have an office, separate office, and your wife is also working just next door and there's a lot of noise. It takes a lot of time to be so focused and to be able to say, okay, today I'm going to do that. It takes organization, better organization, very clear objectives of what you want to get into during the day, and then being very focused. You can develop, it's a muscle that you can develop, but certain extroverts will suffer more because there's less interaction. Some introverts excel because they're in an environment that they're more comfortable in. But I think a leader does well by having more interactions, even virtually, and helping people be more organized. In the morning, what are we going to get achieved? What are we going to do? And then at night, check in. What has been done? What were your challenges? So that they feel connected to something bigger than just themselves at home alone. They feel connected to a bigger group. I think those is very important in this pandemic. The other thing is a lot of companies are suffering, at least in the Western, getting the cash management. Cash management is very important because there's maybe less revenue, people that are highly extended, and now there's no revenue or less revenue coming in. That can be an issue. So the stress level that can happen because the company is stretched, that needs to be managed so that the person can still be performing, but not overwhelmed, I would say. And if they are in financial distraught, to really find ways that they can get out of it so that the coaching can be on that as well. A few ideas of what is more important and what could be done.
So I think, I think remote working has really put us all to the test when it comes to focus. And, it's really kind of become more and more important for us to start, trying to learn how to work, even though we're home and, we have a lot of things going on. And I think especially for leaders, it's even more challenging, I'm sure. So thank you for that and those insights. Lastly, just would want to check in and see, do you have any sound bites for our audience today?
Well, the thing is, the change is maybe more permanent than we think. And so I think we really need to be ready to pivot, to change. I'll give you an example. When I started, coaching was coaching. I mean, that people were struggling to understand what it is because I've been in the business 24 years. Then there was a lot of schools coming out and multiple people were being over a weekend sometimes and calling themselves coaches and putting down the prices. Then there was another trend in the coaching where companies said, coaches are very expensive. We're going to train our people internally to be coaches, so we don't need to hire outside people. So a pivot, at least in my case, is where would the new people doing coaching not be comfortable? Where's there less competition? And as they call this the blue ocean in a company, where there's less competition, was with the most difficult cases. That is, I do now, because I've been in the business very long, is people that are extremely bright, but interpersonally blind, for example. Okay, so if you're coaching an executive that is very quick, but a bit toxic in their ways, newbies don't want to go there. See, so that's a pivot. So I specialize in that. So today, with this pandemic, we don't know if it'll go back to the way it was before, or maybe there'll permanent changes that now people are more comfortable to order things online, or there's different habits that are going to take place. So therefore, you need to really think, what are you going to do with your business to adapt to that? And that's, I think, really that needs to be thought out very carefully. So that's something I think is also important to do and try new things. Even if it doesn't make money, really be active, not sit and wait. Be active and try new processes or a new service or whatever, or doing things online or virtual presentations like we're doing today, so it's hard to change habits, especially because those habits have made you successful to date. So now the game has changed, the rules have changed. So you need to experiment and accept that maybe you'll fail at new things, but try new things. So I think those that are the most creative will survive and survive well. So try new things. That's my advice. Pivot.
I think that's very, very valuable and key, because, it's going to be those that can adapt, that can really, survive this critical and really difficult time that is going on. So wonderful. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you, Katrina. And I really appreciate all the time that, you put in here, and for sharing your thoughts and all the insights that you gave us. I was very inspired, and I'm sure the audience is going to be as well. So thank you so much. And it was an absolute pleasure.
It was a real pleasure to be on your show, and thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.